Welcome to The Explainer. You ever wonder what it would look like if you could just hit pause on the entire planet and take a snapshot of a single day? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. The date is February 24th, 2026, and you're about to see how conflict, politics, and technology all get tangled up in some pretty wild ways. Let's get into it.
So where do we start on this day? We have to start under a pretty heavy shadow, because February 24th marks the 4th anniversary of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And that grim milestone, believe me, it casts a long, tense shadow over pretty much everything else that's about to happen.
So for Ukraine, this day isn't just about looking back. Not at all. It's about pushing forward. But, as we're about to see, it's also a day that really puts its international alliances under a microscope, testing just how strong those bonds really are.
President Zelensky, he really seizes the moment. He goes on this major diplomatic offensive, he's setting a target for EU membership, he's inviting the American president over to Kyiv, and he's got European leaders gathering in the city for this big show of solidarity.
Okay, but here's where it gets complicated. Look at the contrast on this slide. Even as you have leaders standing shoulder to shoulder in Kyiv, you can see the cracks starting to show. Hungary just stops all its support, tying it to some argument over an oil pipeline. And at the exact same time, Russia ramps up the rhetoric with this wild accusation that the West is plotting to give Ukraine nuclear weapons. So you've got unity and division happening side by side on the very same day.
All right, let's shift gears. We're moving from a war that's already in its 4th year to one that feels like it could erupt at any second. We're heading to the Middle East now, where the temperature between the US and Iran is, well, it's reaching a boiling point.
And this is the question on everybody's mind, right? Is America actually getting ready for another war? Because a direct warning from the US president makes it sound like military action isn't just some vague threat anymore, it's a scenario they are actively planning for.
And look, this isn't just talk. They've laid out a clear line of command. They've even publicly named the general who would lead a potential strike. That just adds this chilling, this is real layer to the whole thing. But, get this, at the same time all this is happening, reports are coming out that the US might be running low on munitions. It's an incredibly dangerous game of chicken.
So you've got these huge international stare-downs grabbing all the headlines, but at the same time, some of these major powers are fighting some pretty significant battles right there on their own turf.
Over in Washington, the president is trying to focus on domestic stuff. You know, he's giving the State of the Union, talking about immigration and healthcare, but one of his biggest economic policies is about to hit a massive wall.
Yeah, the administration's whole trade strategy is suddenly in a two-front war. On the very same day, this big new 10% tariff on everything kicks in. The Supreme Court drops a bombshell and blocks a previous set of tariffs. The result? Total chaos and confusion for global markets.
Okay, let's jump south of the border to Mexico. For years, one name has been just synonymous with the country's horrific cartel violence: El Mencho, the infamous head of the CJNG cartel.
And on this day, the Mexican government announces something huge. El Mencho has been killed. Now you'd think this would be a reason to celebrate, right? Well, not exactly. In the brutal world of the drug war, taking out the top guy often just creates a power vacuum. And the immediate fear is that it's about to unleash a wave of incredibly bloody retaliation. And then, thousands of miles away in Moscow, a totally different kind of internal pressure just explodes. A suicide bomber hits a target near a railway station, killing a police officer. It's just this stark, violent reminder of the dangers that are still simmering just below the surface inside Russia. You know, beyond all the headlines about presidents and politics, February 24th was also a day of just immense personal tragedy for people all over the world. Let's take a second to look at the very real human cost of this single day. In Brazil, heavy rains suddenly trigger these catastrophic flash floods. And just like that, in an instant, people's homes, their lives, just washed away.
The first reports say at least 25 people are gone and dozens more are missing. It's a number that everyone knows is tragically going to go up.
Over in Sudan's Darfur region, the disaster isn't natural, it's man-made. Paramilitary forces storm a town, continuing this brutal, seemingly endless cycle of violence.
And the reports from the ground are just horrific. They say at least 28 people were killed in this targeted attack. And then in Iran, on the same day the country is dealing with threats from abroad, a terrible accident happens at home.
A military flight goes horribly wrong. A military helicopter just falls out of the sky and crashes right into a fruit market. It killed 4 innocent people who were just on the ground going about their day.
So yeah, what a day. It was loud, it was chaotic, a day of confrontation, political games, and just profound human loss. But here's the thing. While all the news cameras were pointed at Kyiv and Washington and Tehran, a completely different kind of power play was going down, far away from the spotlight. A deal was being signed, not in some government office, but in a corporate boardroom. Tech giants Meta and AMD just signed a deal that is, well, it's mind-bogglingly huge. They're not just talking about buying millions of AI chips. They're talking about a commitment of up to 6 gigawatts of GPU supply. To give you some perspective, that's enough electricity to power a small country. All of it dedicated to building the future of AI.
And this really gets to the heart of the core question of our time, doesn't it? As we're all focused on the immediate crises, the wars, the politics, the disasters, are we missing the quiet, technological revolutions that are actually going to define our world for decades to come? On a day full of bombs and borders, was the most important event a deal for computer chips? What will history remember from this one single day?